G'day jabronis, it is a Verd here. Hi, I'm back. Just giving you a team report for Sydney. Yeah, I was going to do a series with this where I did some showdown battles and tested it like Jamie Boyd does, but it was my first regionals and I probably didn't do enough actual proper prep. Like all the prep that I was doing was with guys in call and Discord. In the future when I do that stuff, I'm going to actually record it. Because there's a lot more detail gone into it there than there was in the videos that I was doing. So instead I'm going to do a team recap here and then do a tournament overview of how I went at the Sydney VGC regionals. So yeah, basically I want to take a break from Draft League because I was finding it to be just too much strain, too much commitment every single week. I think I was just in too many leagues. So I think when I go back to Draft League, I'm only going to be in like 1 or 2 leagues, if any. Just a small amount, and then from there mainly just focusing on VGC. But this was the last big regional that I could go to in Australia before Worlds, because Worlds is in August. After this regional there's a special event I believe in New Zealand, and then there was a there's the North America International Championships. And then there's the World Championships in August. So I can't really qualify for any of those. I could try and fly over to compete in the North American one, but honestly, it's too much effort, too much money. I'm going to commit to it more next year. I just wanted to dip my toes in and just see how it'd go, I suppose. As people who watch my channel will know, I take VGC very in depth, and I take team building and whatnot in depth. So I knew that when it came to team building, I was going to be able to build a good team, but I've always struggled with battles and understanding my plays. But I will try and break down the team building aspect first, and then I have my notebook from the matches, and I'll give you guys a recap on how they all went. So, the team. In VGC, you're allowed 2 restricted Pokemon. The 2 restricted I chose to use were Xerneas and Mega Rayquaza. I would say probably the easiest 2 restricted to use. For a person starting out, very, very easy. Xerneas is the most straightforward Pokemon you'll ever use in VGC. It really is. The only tricky thing about Xerneas that you have to decide, I suppose, is whether you want to set up or not. Like, it's all about choosing when you Geomancy, choosing when you Dazzle and Moonblast. The rest of it, like the building wise, is just to your preference. So my preference, well, there are a few things. So with this investment, there's a few things that my Xerneas can do. Let's just go through everything. I had a sheet of calcs, but I don't want to really go through them because they may become handy for Sword and Shield. Never know. So I'm just going to hold on to them for now. But basically, the Xerneas was super bulky. So heading into Moon Series before Ultra Series, a lot of Xerns were just running max, like 252, 252, Timid with max special attack. And that's great and all, but for the meta where Rayquaza was coming in, a lot of teams were using like banded Mega Rayquaza. That became a bit of a worry, and Stack Attacker was on the rise as well. So I decided to go with like a really bulky Xerneas. It's bulky enough to where it doesn't die to banded Dragon Descent from Rayquaza. Stack Attacker with max attack Brave at -1 from Incineroar. Does an Oko +2 Xerneas with Gyro Ball. It's also funny, this Xerneas was designed and it actually came in clutch in, which game was it? My first game of the entire competition. I didn't realise that it also had the bulk to where my opponent, who ended up going into the finals, was running a 20 attack Brave Stacker, and that actually, with the investment I have in my Xerneas, can tank a Gyro Ball at +2, and that's without Stacker being lowered, so that's pretty sick. That was more for the Fizz Def stuff. Like also, P-Lace from Don, I believe, is a 2-hit KO, depending on if it's adamant or not. I'm trying to think of any other physical attackers. Z-Lando doesn't knock it out, stuff like that. And then the Spadef, although it's only 12 Spadef with the HP, what that means is that Electrium Z Tapu Koko's Z Thunderbolt will not knock out Xerneas. And it also means that Landorus Therian, it means that Mega Gengar Sludge Bomb does not knock out Xerneas either. So that's pretty huge. 36 speed, because most of the bulky Xerneases that people were running 28 speed, so I just wanted to creep them so I can get my Geomancy and moves off faster. And then I put the rest into special attack to just kind of get the job done. It's a very straightforward set. It just comes down to when you feel like you have the best opportunity to geo, and then with the physical bulk, you can take a lot of hits. So it's pretty good. Yeah. Finny. So basically, I revolve the team around Xerneas and Rayquaza, and the 4 mons in the middle are basically, I go into a game and I say, alright, most games you bring in Xerneas and Ray, and it just depends on which of the other 4 you want to bring. So standard 3 is the Fire, Water, Grass cores. Finny, Incin, Amoonguss is just good on any team. Straight up. You can just choose any 2 restricted you want, chuck Finny, Incineroar, or Amoonguss, and then a filler Zmon, and you're sorted. Pretty much. Like, you choose a restricted, like, that could also, instead of being that could be like a Mega, and then you could have, like, say, Primal Groudon there, still have Xerneas there. Incin could then change to being Incinium Z instead of being like a bulky item. Like, you've got so many options, but Finny was a really good mon for me in the tournament. I will get into tournament results after this as well. I don't want to reveal them just yet, but Finny was really good for me. With the bulk that I gave it, it's very different to what a lot of other people were running, but I really liked it. So with this bulk, Finny was able to have a 93... What was it? Sorry. It was... Finny had a 93.5% chance to live both a +2 modest Xerneas Moonblast and a banded Dragon Ascent from Rayquaza. So, like, it had an amazing chance to live both of them, which is obscene. Like, normally your Finny's designed to live 1, so it made the matchup against X-Ray really, really solid. Scald's great because Rayquaza has Airlock before it Mega Evolves, so you can swap in Ray as they have their Primal Don in, and you can Scald it, which is sick. It's also really good for Bronzongs because even with Misty Terrain up, you can burn it, and if you burn Bronzong, it's super good for Xerneas. Gives you effectively a free Geomancy. Icy Wind was really good for speed control. It is a bit counterproductive having Haze on the same set. Looking back on it, I actually found I rarely ever clicked Icy Wind, and upon reflection, I think maybe I would have been better off with Madness. There were a few matches where I was like, shit, if I had Madness, it would be a lot better, but it is what it is. Haze is really important for Xerneas, and Light Screen's really good to support the team against opposing Xerneases, Kyogres, Lunalas, all that jazz is super important. But yeah, I didn't want to run any speed. A lot of Finnies run speed. And then the Wiki Berry, which is basically when I go to 25%, I get 50% back. It's one of those berries. We just call them 50% berries. But yeah, pretty straightforward. So like the way you play Finny is just kind of changing terrains so that you can kind of deal with Coco and Lele better. Especially Lele in the Psychic Spam matchup. Leading Finny Ray is just super strong. They don't appreciate getting Icy Winded at all. You can also just Light Screen. So the cool thing that I did it wasn't a game that I actually played at the tournament, but on Showdown, I played against a Lele Ultra Necrozma team, and I had Finny Ray lead. He went for Moonblast into my Ray, which you'll see didn't do a lot of damage at all. My Finny then proceeded to go for Light Screen as Ray knocked out Lele because it was Scarfed, and then on the next turn, I was able to, I think he went into Dawn. Nah, it was something else. He went into something else. I can't remember what it was exactly, but I was able to, what did I do again? What did I Light Screen? Nah, what did I do? I think I did go for Light Screen, and what happened was Ray was able to live Light That Burns the Sky. It was funny as. Light Screen is super clutch. Anyway. Incin. Again, 50% berry, pretty straightforward set. Incin's pretty much the most common Pokemon in VGC. Crazy how, like, in draft format, it's rarely ever used, but in VGC, it's an absolute god. Fake Out is so good. Not to mention having U-Turn. Fake Out plus U-Turn is great. Its typing is just really good for the meta. Flareblast, I chose Snarl. A few people thought Lariat was better, and some were running Throat Chop as well, but I really like Snarl with this team because it made the Gengar matchup a lot better. Like, I could lead Incin, and if the Gengar wanted to sub, and like, it was sick because my first game was against Henry, and I knew he had a Veltor. So if he brought out a Veltor beside Gengar, I knew my Snarl was doing like half to him because he gave me a Dark Aura boost. So I knew he wasn't going to risk that at all, which was sick. Pretty straightforward moveset. The bulk is just there because with that bulk I can live a +2 Timid Moonblast from Xerneas and then proc my Berry to get back up. I can't really damage Xerneas too much, but I have other things for that, like Haze Finny, I have an Amoonguss, and you'll see other techs further on. But Incin was just really good. Great pivot along with Finny. Both of them are basically my pivot mons, and they're just super good. You can lead double. You can have double restricted plus Finny and Incin most matchups, and it's just amazing. Like, it's just really, really good. I decided to go Sassy so that I could get my U-turns off slower than opposing Incins, and I also wanted to make sure that my Incin was always outspeeding Primals in Trick Room, just in case, you know, I could go for a Snarl or a cheeky like Flare Blitz or something just to get some damage off was sick. Also, with Ray getting Airlock, if Ogre has the Primordial Rain up and Ray can just, you know, weaken it so that it doesn't kill you with Spout, then you can just proceed to Flare Blitz their Ferrothorn and just knock him out. It's great. Amoonguss, honestly, I don't know why I didn't bring it to as many matches as I did. The Amoonguss was actually, instead of Mental Herb, so it never actually came into fruition. But the Amoonguss was Focus Sash for this game. And there were a couple of times where I forgot it was Focus Sash. Like, there was a game I recall, I guess it was Henry. Game 3, I definitely should have led with Amoonguss, because it would put me in a great spot. Like, leading Amoonguss plus Ray would have been really good. I could have just picked up his Lele turn 1. It would have been great. But I didn't, and that was my bad. Like, I just forgot like a few things during the day. This Amoonguss set is really solid though. Absolutely tanks Moonblast from Zern. The physical bulk allows me to tank some Z moves, not all. It's got an okay chance of living Z foul play from Yveltal, judging on how I got no attack at all. So that's pretty good. Can take Insignium Z from Incin as well. Tanks a lot of hits. It's pretty crazy. Like, -1 Dragon Ascent doesn't knock it out. The move pool is pretty true. So Clear Smog removes all stat boosts, so opposing Xerneas is basically like a haze that hits them for damage. Grass Knot is mainly for like Kyogre and Groudon to chip them down. It's really good. I could have replaced this with like so many other moves that maybe would have been more useful, but Knot was just, it was fine. Spore puts everything to sleep unless they have Misty Terrain or Electric Terrain up. And Rage Powder redirects attacks to focus on Amoonguss. It's kind of like Follow Me for Amoonguss, but if an opponent has like safety ults, then you don't get targeted. So it is what it is. It's sassy as well, so that I actually outslow Bronzong. So once it goes for Trick Room, my Amoonguss outspeeds the Bronzong and can put it to sleep before it can put my Pokemon to sleep, which is pretty funny. I like that. This was probably This was the mon that I was most excited to use in Sydney, but was probably the most underwhelming Pokemon on my team by a country mile. I had such high hopes for Ninja. I really did. I thought it was going to do so much more work than it actually did. On paper, it was sick. And the thing I realized was, like, in a best of one scenario, like I was testing on Showdown, Ninja's amazing, but in the actual event, it wasn't that great. It got a few kills here and there, but half the time, it just wasn't doing enough damage where I needed it to, and there were times where I kind of wish I had Dark Pulse, because if I had Dark Pulse on Grand, there were so many matches I would have won a lot easier. But, the premise of the set, I should explain, is Poisonium Z Gunk Shot with 244 attack, Oko's any variant of Finny, and Oko's the bulkiest variant of Xerneas. Even my spread. My spread of Xerneas gets Oko by this Gren Z Gunk Shot. Obviously, you got to watch out for Incins going for, like coming in, doing Intimidate. Even if the zone protects, it's basically in range of a Gunk Shot again, and because you went for the Gunk Shot, it means you're a Poison type, which means that Xerneas can't actually knock you out with Moonblast anyway, so that's pretty funny. Scald's there because with 20 special attack investment, it is a 93.5% chance to Oko max HP Force F Don outside of a Primordial Sun. And Ice Beam was just there because it picks up Ment's turn 1. I don't want Tailwind. But upon reflection, I think looking back at this team, it would have been cool to have something different. Because the problem with Gren was there were a couple of games like against Brady where I was able to nab a kill with Gren. But then once he knew exactly what Gren did, it was so much easier for him to play around. And there wasn't really like any layers to Gren to make it better. I think if it had Dark Pulse, it could have been sick. But I really wanted the Poisonium to, like, I expected more X-Ray matchups where Gren just dominates that. Because Ice Beam 2, I send in my Ray and then I Ice Beam their Ray. And they're not protected by Strong Winds, so they just get OHKO'd. But just never came to fruition, unfortunately. It was, yeah, a very underwhelming set, but on paper it just seemed great, and I was a bit sad because the team effectively I was using is similar to the one that won Berlin, only I replaced Nihilego with Greninja because I felt like I didn't need Nihilego to be the extra Xerneas or Ray check. I could just bring something that outspeeds both still and just smacks them up. So on paper it seemed great, but in a best of 3 it was really easy to read and play around, and that was a downside. So probably if I was going to use another team during Ultra Series, it'd be this still, because I love the 5 sets that I have. I just have to look at maybe a different Zemon that assists the team a bit more with what I want to do, but I don't regret the Gren. It was really solid in practice, but yeah, when it came to the actual games, it was a bit of a letdown. The one Pokemon that wasn't a letdown, my MVP of the day was this set. 100%. Masto and I made this set, and it is like my favorite race that I pass this on to multiple people to use because it's just so ridiculously good. I can't even... There are 2 calcs that I want to tell you with this Ray, with that bulk. So with that bulk, a modest Lele Moonblast into a Ultra Necrozma going for Photon Geyser. So that's modest Lele Moonblast into Photon Geyser in misty terrain because you normally have Finny next to it. That combination of attacks, which is basically Necrozma's strongest attack and Lele's strongest attack, will not OHKO your Ray. And in return, you can basically just Dragon Ascent and knock out their Lele, and then Icy Wind, then Necrozma, so that your Ray can outspeed next turn and pick that up with Dragon Ascent as well, because Ray's just insane. So that bulk's incredible. The speed was enough to creep Nihilego. I probably could have ran more to creep Metagross, but I don't know, I felt like my Metagross matchup, they were kind of, maybe would be scared of Greninja with the potential for Darkinium. Darkinium would have been so good. Upon reflection, Darkinium would have been so good, but it's fine. Dragon Ascent, just absolutely spamable, it's so good. E-Speed's great just to pick up things. There were so many mons that like barely lived on a sliver, so having like the fact that I had E-Speed to just pick them up was really nice. Earth Power's there for Stack Attacker and Nihilego, also damages Groudon. Really nice. I could have ran Waterfall for Groudon, but I just felt like because I had Finny and Gren with Scold, there was no need. I should be able to pick up Groudons every time I play them. Funnily enough, did not play a single Groudon in the 6 matches I had. No Dons. I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you joking? Could not believe it, but it is what it is. And then the tech that Masso and I came up with was Overheat. Overheat was good because I found the team actually a little bit weak to Ferrothorn on Kyogre teams. So I chucked it on with Ray, and it just OHKOs Ferrothorn. It gets off really, really good damage against Bronzong, Celesteela, Metagross. I mean, Metagross takes it from Earth Power, but Overheat's obviously a little bit stronger. Pretty much puts it into E-Speed range after that. So really, really nifty Pokemon for sure. But I guess what I'll do now, I'll shift over to another screen that you won't be able to, like, you'll be able to see it. I obviously haven't edited it in yet until probably like now or whatever. I don't really know what I did, but what I'm going to do is go through my 6 games that I played. So I had 6 rounds of Swiss, and then if I did well enough from there, I'd go on to the finals. So first game, my first ever game on a VGC regionals, I faced Henry Rich, who I think has already got enough CP to get Day 2 of Worlds. I'm not 100% sure of that, but very, very good player, but also a really good friend of mine. Like, we have got to know each other a lot lately, and he had a sick team. I knew his team was really good. We actually practiced against each other in the past, and I basically was only able to win a lot of the matchups because my Gren got a freeze on his Yveltal, and I was able to get like some dodges of moves, and so I was going in like feeling 50-50, but Masto and I had practice against the matchup, and I felt a bit more confident about the matchup heading into it. So we were going first game, and I remember I led... what did I lead against Henry? My standard lead against that team is Ray and Incin, I think. No, I reckon I left Incin in the back. Did I? No, I led Ray plus Incin, because normally they lead Gengar plus Stack Attacker. So Ray Incin's sick because Earth Power into Snarl picks up any, like, I knew his Stack Attacker spread, but I didn't calc the Ray for his Stacker spread. But I knew that if he wasn't Shooker, he could maybe barely live the Earth Power from Ray, and even if he did, then I knew that Snarl from Incin would pick it up, and if Gengar tried to sub, I could take advantage of that. And I wasn't too fussed if Ray got trapped after that, because I could still drag in a sense as a Veltor for damage. I could still do damage to his Gengar if he chose to protect that turn. So I covered all bases. So I led Ray plus Incin, and I can't remember exactly what he led, but basically game 1 he was just hacking me out. He crit, I think, my Ray in the first game. He got a Rock Slide flinch, all this stuff. And what it basically came down to was Xerneas was in against Stack Attacker, and I think it was his Primal Kyogre. And I couldn't pick up both, but I knew that I couldn't take a hit from both either. So I chose to Dazzling Gleam. This is where the bulk from Zern came in clutch as fuck. I thought I lost the game because he flinched out one of my mons. My Zern clicks Dazzling Gleam and picks up Ogre and puts Stacker into Moonblast range. And his Stack Attacker... Ooh. No, I recall it now. I had to go for Dazzle. Dazzle would have picked up Ogre, but I needed to go for Moonblast into Dazzle to pick up his Stacker. So I Moonblasted his Stacker, and then it was, I think, the last turn of Trick Room. So what ends up happening is that his Stacker goes for Gyro, and my Xerneas barely lives. His Kyogre goes for Origin Pulse, and I dodge it. And then I Moonblast his Stack Attacker and put both Stacker and Ogre in range of Dazzling Gleam, and proceed to pick up both. So I got really lucky game 1, but at the same time he was saying I deserved the win because I just outplayed him in the first game. But what Henry is very good at is he learns from game 1, and he knew a lot of my sets after that and was able to really play well. Basically, the game 2 and 3, what it came down to was both times I led Xerneas and both times he led Tapu Lele, and both games I got the prediction completely wrong. So, spoilers, he won game 2 because I predicted him to go for Magic Room and he decided to double attack my Ray and knock it out. I was able to knock out his Lele. Like, first turn, every time, I just Dragon Ascended his Lele and knocked it out. It was fantastic. Oh, maybe he led Lele in that game. Yeah, he led Lele Ogre, like, almost every game. And it got, so yeah, the second game, he outplayed me. I just didn't... Gren had become so obvious with its set that it was really easy to play around. I just didn't have enough firepower. I should have brought a Moongus and I didn't, so that was my mistake. But he took game 2 and it got to game 3, so he hadn't gone for Magic Room in game 2. So I was sitting there like, maybe he doesn't have it. And so I was like, I'm going to go for Geomancy because maybe he has Taunt. And if he goes for Taunt with Lele, it's not as bad for my zone because I can still knock out his, what do you call it? The Lele. And then if he goes into Gengar with Ogre next to it, then he might protect Gengar. I could always just double out both Mons if I needed to and save Zern to Geo later in the game. Get my Finny in to get up a light screen if possible. You know, give myself a lot of options. Unfortunately, I just got the... It turns out Henry was packing both Taunt and Magic Room, which was insane, but he got the read right in the third game as well. As I go for Geo, he's able to get the Magic Room off, and the game's pretty much done from there. There's no way I can bring that back. So unfortunately, my first game ever for VGC, I ended up losing, but Henry ends up making it to the final. He got second place overall in the entire regional. I brought him to 3 games, and he said that every game was really close. So to know that I could do that against a guy that made it to finals put a lot of faith in my spirit. And also to start with, it was just a really fun game. Like, it was really enjoyable to play Henry. I felt the matchup was pretty even, and I think I just shouldn't have brought Gren as much as I did. I got excited for Gren using it. I knew that it could do semi-okay against this matchup, but it just wasn't really needed half the time. I think having a Moongus or just going like Zern, Ray, Finny, Incin was always just good against Henry's team. I just needed to learn how to play my roles better. And also just, he got the 2 predictions right. If I went for Geo and when he Moonblasted my Rayquaza, he said like he straight up lost at that point because I could pressure his Stacker still with my Finny having Scald. And like, yeah, Moonblast into Scald pretty much just picks up Stacker, and Ogre's not a threat at that point. So you can't go into that to pressure. And then there's the issue that like he could go into Stacker potentially, but I could also just have Incin. And then because his Stacker's so weak after game 1, I had the chance to just really put in work again. So yeah, it was just a learning curve. Like this entire game was a learning curve. But heading into the second matchup that I had, it was actually against Daniel Walkerson. This was an interesting one. He was running the exact team that won Berlin. With a few like minor tweaks that he'd done. So his Ray had overheat as well, so that was kind of funny. This was probably the matchup that I was most annoyed with, because in this matchup, when it comes to X-Ray, I was confident I could beat X-Ray every time I played it, but I kind of sold myself because of the game against Henry. Gren didn't put in a lot of work, so I was doubting Gren's ability heading into the matchup where Gren shines the most. So I led Gren still, but I just didn't pair it with Ray. Gren Ray is my go-to lead against opposing X-Ray, because normally if they lead one of their fairies plus Rayquaza or Nihilego, I just pick up both pretty much at that point. Like, it's insane. Well, I normally lead Ray Greninja, and then I just go for Z move into the fairy type and swap Ray out into Incin to prevent his Ray from being too much of a nuisance. And normally that does great, but unfortunately, I think I led Gren plus Xerneas. For some reason, it was a really bad lead. I went Gren Xerneas because I expected like Rayquaza plus one of the fairy types, so I could Z move, or I could double into Ray and knock out his Ray. And he led Nihilego and Moongus, and I was like, what is this? So Zern was just dead weight in the front, and there wasn't a lot to bring it in the back. And then I was just in a position where, because I didn't lead Ray, I was super vulnerable to Nihilego, and I just ran through my team. So terrible game 1. Game 2, lead Incin with Ray, and it made things a lot better. Unfortunately, in that game, in the first game, it was unfortunate too, because I tried clawing it back, but my Rayquaza got crit by his Nihilego, going for Sludge Bomb, I think, and it put it in range of his Ray's E-Speed, which was super unfortunate because it could have knocked out his Nihilego. Well, I would have gone for E-Speed first into his Nihilego. That would have put it in range of my Finny Skull, which would have made the matchup a little bit easier in the first one, but it is what it is. In the second game, he just pivoted Incin really well around my Gren. I just didn't have enough momentum for it to never be intimidated going for moves. I had his Zern down to about 40%, and I was going to fire up a -1 Gunk Shot. I don't think I would have knocked Zern out, but there was always a chance of poisoning, which was kind of what I was banking on. But unfortunately, I missed the Gunk Shot. That pretty much just cost me the game. So unfortunately, a couple of turns of hacks. It's part of the game, so I wasn't even that mad. I was more mad at how I played the Gren, because in that matchup, if I put it in the right position, it just dominates. And I just never felt like I was able to get it in that position. I think Walker played really well around it, but at the same time, I just didn't have enough faith in Gren in that matchup to use it to the best of its ability. I needed to time it better. I was rushing when to click Z move. I just should have played it more patiently and waited for my moment and used the Moongus more. I think I was so transfixed on using things like Incin, and I should have backed a Moongus more, because having the Sash with redirection is just really good for things like Incin, for Gren, which can then just Z move. But it is what it is. So we're 0-2 at this point. I've won 1 game and lost 3. No, I won 1 game, lost 4. So I was feeling pretty depleted. I knew that the only way that I could get into top cut was winning the rest of my games from now. A lot of my friends were 2-0, so I was like, shit, this sucks. But I went up against a guy. He was a lovely guy named Ben. His team was... it was something. I was very surprised by it. I won't lie. I just remembered his last one was a Veltor, so I'm going to make sure that's on the screen. But yeah, his team was very out there. He was just having a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun playing him. It was just a refreshing game, but obviously, as you can see, he had nothing for lead Gren plus Xerneas, so I 2-0'd him. I felt kind of bad, but at the same time, we had so much fun during the game that it just didn't matter, and he was such a lovely kid. So, picked up a win there, but it's going to be pretty bad for my resistance because he didn't really beat anybody on the day. So I go into game 4, and I've got a bit of confidence because I've got a win, but I didn't feel like a really big win. I just needed to play well, and I went up against this guy called Tim, and it was probably the cleanest set that I played for the entire day against Tim. He never brought Ray or Lando. He just brought the other 4 every game, and my basic game plan was pretty much that I didn't feel confident with Gren, because although he had the... I think I brought it, but I was a bit iffy about it, because his Talonflame comeback screen. His Talonflame outspeeds, his Coco outspeeds, but I can't really hit Ferrothorn, so I had Gren in the back just in case I needed it for Ray and Lando, but the main 3 that put in work were Xerneas, Rayquaza, and I think it was Tapu Fini in the matchup. So pretty much I would always lead. I think it was Ray Xerneas most times. or Ray Finney was just also just really, really solid, because getting rid of Coco's electric terrain is huge. The Coco was actually HPR, which was kind of funny, but pretty much game 1 came down to Xerneas was already set up, and all I had to do was kind of like dazzle and win, but I was a bit worried about him being Scarf Coco, and he kept using Quick Guard with Talonflame, so I couldn't E-Speed kill it. But it was like that game of like Sucker Punch where you keep predicting if your opponent's going to not click Sucker Punch. I just clicked E-Speed 3 times in a row. Third time, he didn't click Quick Guard, and Xerneas finished off both, and it turns out that he wasn't even Scarf Coco. Some good information though from that first game, knowing it wasn't Scarf Coco. It meant that I knew I could set up next time and catch him. In game 1 as well, I had Mega Evolved Ray, went for Overhit on his Ferrothorn, but he doubled into Kyogre and was able to shut it down. So I knew that was my ploy for the next game. So I led Zern plus Ray. Yeah, it was Zern plus Ray. And the trick was that I think he led Coco plus Ferrothorn. And what ended up happening was I Geomancied up with Zern, kept Ray in base form. The Coco Volt switched on the Xerneas for damage. He goes into Ogre, but because I've stayed in base form with my Ray, Overheat's able to pick up Ferrothorn. So I get a free Geo, and he's stuck there, pretty much in a losing situation, because he can go into Talon, but I can just pick that thing up. And there's not a whole lot that Coco and Kyogre can do to a set up Xerneas, so game 2 was a bit of a breeze once I got that read right with the Ferrothorn. So that was just really sweet and easy. Overheat Ray put in the exact work I designed it to do. So after going 0-2, we pulled it back to 2-2, and I was like, okay, shit, this is not looking too bad. And the 2 guys I lost to had been doing really well, so my resistance was going up, and I was like, okay, there's a chance. I was just still enjoying it, and like game 5 was sick. I was up against Brady, another guy who I'm good friends with, and we were actually up on stage playing this game, and it was probably the best set I played in my life. Like, it was just insane the amount of things that happened. This was the set where it was cemented to me how underwhelming Greninja became. Because game 1, Gren just clicked Z-Gunk Shot and Finny disappeared. And it was an easy game 1 after that. I knew Stacker wasn't Shooker, so Earth Power just picked it up, straight up. So I knocked that out. Turn 1, I Earth Power knocked out his Stacker, and Z moved and knocked out his Finny, and the game was done at that point. He didn't bring a Veltor or Kyogre to any of the 3 games, but he basically just had Instant Mega Meta in the back, and with Mega Meta not having... his Mega Metagross didn't have Ice Punch, so I knew that I could just stay in with Ray, go for Earth Power onto Instant. I knew then my Instant could just beat his Metagross if I needed it to, so I felt comfortable. Game 2 was where the cracks started to show, because he led with the Finny again and doubled into Metagross, so went for the Z move, so it was completely wasted. And then I should have had game 2 wrapped up, but he went for a Meteor Mash with Metagross, hit it. Well, I mean, hitting it's not the hard part. The attack boost was the annoying part, because with the attack boost, he was able to pick up Ray and Gren with Bullet Punch when he wouldn't have been able to pick up either of them. And it just cost me big time, because Ray could have outsped. No, I wouldn't have outsped. Depends how fast his Metagross was, I can't remember. But Ray could have E-speeded still, which would have been clutch for damage. So unfortunately lost that one. So we went to game 3, and I just decided not to bring Gren. I think I went with like the big 4, I call them, which is Ray, Zern, Finny, Insing. And he kept getting boosts with his Metagross, and I was getting really frustrated because it wasn't like I was playing badly. He was just getting these boosts, and it was throwing me off. But I luckily was able to reposition myself and got myself in a position where I could fake out his Metagross and Geomancy with Zern. And Zern was pretty weak though, so it came down pretty much to I had Instant at about half, and Zern in Bullet Punch range from his Metagross, which was I think neutral at the time. So he had to choose whether he was going to Bullet Punch and knock out my Zern, and then hopefully live the hit from Instant and then knock out Instant next turn, or if he Stomping Tantrum from my Instant and then, you know, lives the Moonblast from Zern and takes it out. And in the end, he ends up making the wrong play, and I kind of get rewarded. In hindsight, he lost nothing from Tantruming my Instant, because he knew that he was in range of, he knew that Zern was in range of Bullet Punch. He was more afraid because he saw the damage from earlier with Zern, and was worried that Metagross might just get dropped by Moonblast. So he actually ends up trying to Bullet Punch Zern. I read into that and protect, and Insin's able to Flare Blitz into Metagross. He doesn't have a way of hitting both of my Mons, so he Bullet Punches and knocks out Zern, Insin and Flare Blitzes and knocks out Mega Metagross, and we win. So we're 3-2 now, heading into the final game, and Henry, I think at this stage, was 4-1, and Daniel was 3-2. Henry finished 5-1, and Daniel finished 4-2. So my resistance was looking hella good. Pretty much, I had a good chance, I thought at that stage, of making it into top cut. All I had to do was win my last set, and that was against Simon Consti. It was a really interesting set. His team was super interesting. I really enjoyed these games. So game 1 was pretty back and forward. I got a burn on his Zong, which was kind of huge because it let Zern put in way more work than it should have. But what it came down to was his Don went for a Fire Punch on my Zern that lived with literally 3 HP remaining that he was a bit salty about. I don't know if it was actually a roll, because you've seen my Zern, it's bulky as fuck. I have no idea if that was a roll when it happened. I do that, and then my Finny got a crit on his Don and knocked it out with Icy Wind. I don't know if the crit mattered. Like, judging on damage, it would have been close, but I'd done like a spread Icy Wind the turn before into a single target Icy Wind, so I just really didn't know the damage calc for his Don spread from there to know if it mattered, but he slammed the bloody table, so I had a feeling it mattered, and I felt kind of bad because that gave me the game, but it is what it is. So won game 1, we went into game 2, and it was just becoming more and more abundant. The Gren just really didn't help. I needed something else, because like the Finny was okay against Don Kyogre, but what I was noticing was I really had to lead Ray every match, and literally every match the same first turn play happened, and it was actually so detrimental for me. I looked back on this and I was like, if I was Hasty Ray, this matchup was an easy win, because with Hasty Ray, I just Earth Power Coco and Oko it, and Coco every time was just trying to attack my Zern. I led Zern with Ray next to it. I protected Zern as he Z moved into Zern, and I Earth Powered Coco, and it lived with a Slither every time because my Ray was too weak. If I was Hasty and knocked out Coco, I had the free Geo next turn essentially, because Ogre just went for Ice Beam every time afterwards, and Ray was able to tank it. But it was just super annoying that I was forced to try and E-Speed Coco to pick it up. But it was fine, because like in the second game, it meant that I could Geomancy with Zern and E-Speed into his Bronzong. But the problem was he doubled out into Don, and then I tried to overheat into his Bronzong, and he doubled back in his Ogre, and I was like, shit. So that plan kind of failed, and I ended up losing that game because Don plus Zong just kind of overwhelmed me. So I was like, fine, we'll get into the last game, and we can do this. So last game, it's pretty much a balancing of the hacks that happened in the first game, I suppose. I go for a +2 Moonblast into a Dragon Ascent onto his Kyogre, which lives with literally like 1 HP. Literally 1. Which was huge because it meant that he could bring Kyogre back in and go for the Primordial Sea again to shut down my overheat play to knock out his Bronzong. Because if Bronzong went down, I had to have the game wrapped up with Ray. So unfortunately, his Ogre just barely lived, and I was like, crap. So I played around it though, and it came down to he had Groudon plus Bronzong under Trick Room against me having my Ray and a full health Sashmoongus. And there were 2 things I forgot when I made these plays, and they kind of haunt me to this day still. Is 1, there was Trick Room, and there were a lot of turns of Trick Room left. And 2, that I had Incin in the back. So I literally designed my Amoonguss to outspeed his Bronzong. So all I had to do on that turn was Spore his Bronzong. I went for Rage Powder, just to be clear. I went for Rage Powder. What I should have just done was click Spore. If I Spored his Bronzong and put it to sleep, Zong's doing nothing. And, oh my god, Masto, why are you doing this? Masto's messaging me. Pretty much, I should have Spored the Zong, and then I would have taken, because I knew it was Fire Punch P-Blade Don. There was nothing you could do to really hit Ray, so I could have just Earth Powered his Don for free, and the game was wrapped up by then, because the Moongus can Spore his Don as well, and then I can freely overheat, and then if Don's asleep, I can just Grass Knot or whatever it. But I just forgot the Trick Room. I forgot that I was faster with a Moongus under Trick Room, and I also forgot that I had an Incin in the back. So I thought the biggest threat was Zong, because I saw myself having Ray plus a Moongus, and I was like, shit, Zong could be an issue. But then I was like, I don't know why I chose to do this play, but then also something really bullshit happened, which was that I overheated his Zong in Primordial Sun, and it lived. So he was max special defense, which I actually am curious. I'm going to quickly calc it now. If, like, I think he had to be legitimately max. I'm doing this calc while I've got the other screen up, just because I want to see if this is actually what he needed to be to live that hit. So, Ray went for overheat in harsh sun. So, like, Ray overheat in harsh sunlight, 2 Bronzong does 82 to 97.7. So, I'd already done some chip damage on his Zong though. So I was like, oh, maybe it picks it up, and it just didn't. Because he was sassy max Zong. I could not believe it. But then I was like, shit, I just made the worst play possible, because what ends up happening is I don't knock out the Zong, and Amoonguss gets knocked out for no reason. So then I'm left with Incin plus Rayquaza. And again, I make a total just brain fart misplay, because he protects his Zong, and my Ray tries to... I think I go for Earth Power in the end on his Don. I'm pretty sure. No, I couldn't even click Earth Power now on Don. I think I had to go for Dragon Ascent, because in that situation, Earth Power was a 2-shot on Don. But that means it would have been basically a 1-shot on the Don earlier if I'd clicked it. And because I'd overheated, I just had no way around Don. I just completely choked away any chance I had a top cut. So I was pretty salty after that happened. I'm gonna be real with you. I was livid because I felt like I outplayed him, and I put myself in a position where I literally won. I literally designed this Amoonguss and this Incineroar for this exact situation, and I did not use them to the best of their ability. All Amoonguss had to do was Spore the Groudon or the Bronzong. I just overheat with Ray, and it doesn't matter after that point. The game's just done. Because all I had to do was knock out... I Spore the Bronzong and I Earth Power his Don. Because there's no way Amoonguss gets knocked out, so I can always Spore next turn. And if I knock out his Don, then, Zong just loses to my Incin. Straight up. There is nothing his Bronzong can do to beat my Incin at that point. So I had the game on lock, and I just completely threw it away. It was really disappointing. I know, like, in my heart, that if I had just taken a second to look back and see that I had an Incin in the back, I would have made the correct plays, and I would have finished 4-2. And that would have put me... I think they would have said it would have been, like, 9th or 10th overall. So I would have I would have got top 16 in my first ever VGC event. But unfortunately, I just made a really silly play. And I had people talking to me about it afterwards. I legitimately just kind of laughed it off, because it was so silly, I guess, in hindsight, to look back and be like, oh... I just didn't look and see that I had an Incin in the back. Because if I knew Incin was there, Don was the problem. So I was just going to double attack Don at that point. Because I knew he was going to try and gyro and knock out my Ray. So I could just Rage Powder if I needed to. Or just realizing that my Amoonguss was faster. It was just really, really stupid. But regardless, what that means is we finished 3-3. In my first regional, I finished 3-3. Finished 22nd out of 51 people, so in the top half. And like, I shouldn't be disappointed. It is my first regional in VGC. We weren't expecting the world, but to know that I was like that fucking close to getting, not only getting CP in my first event, which would have been funny, but also potentially getting into top 8 and going to day 2. Would have been insane. Like, I would have been absolutely stoked if that had happened. Oh, nice voice break, Sam. I would have been stoked if that would have happened, because the team, I didn't expect it to do that well. I didn't expect myself to do that well during this regionals run, but it was so close to top cutting, which is crazy. I'm very proud of what I did, and honestly, like, people have told me, everybody came up to me after the event and said, like, you did so well in your first event, man, and the support was insanely good. I felt so wholesome and loved by it. And as much as it sucks I lost that last game, Simon's such a lovely guy. Like, he was really wanting to make top cut, and we had a really, really fun game. He, I think, was a bit more into it than I was. I think I just don't care about it enough yet. I was just really wanting to enjoy myself in my first VGC event, but I mean, Simon didn't make top cut, but he ended up packing like a $400 TCG card, so I don't think he was too upset by it. But yeah, so we finished 3-3. I was very happy at the end of it. Looking back, I think Gren was just the problem. I'm going to look into if I ever use this team for any other events. There won't be any, but like if I ladder or whatnot, I would just drop the Gren. It's great for best of 1, but in best of 3, it's just too easy to read. You could easily just chuck Nihilego back on here with Rockium, and the team would still do great with just the fix-ups with something. I think Sasha Moongus is better than Mental Herb. Being able to tank 2 hits and allow your Zern to just put in work is amazing. Or it's allowing your Finny to effectively light screen up as you sack a Moongus to allow your Zern a relatively free Geo on the next turn if you can. You're just trying to pivot for momentum. But yeah, the Gren was the probably downer, but that's it, guys. You've sat here for a long time. God knows if any of you actually sat through the whole video, but that was my recap. So, first regionals event, 3-3. No regrets. No regrets at all. I had a lot of fun. It was so good meeting so many new people and getting to try this team out. Massive shout out to, I got a lot of names to talk about here. We got Masto, Graham, Malcolm, Mudcrab. Who else we got? Mudcrab, Daniel Walker, Jack Buckley, or Rapthos, I should say. Rapthos. Megan was really lovely. Megan Rattle was absolutely lovely. I love chatting with her. Simon, Henry. There's just so many people. Oh, did I say Malcolm already? Probably. Have I forgotten somebody? I legit have forgotten somebody. Who have I forgotten? Or nah, I don't think I have forgotten anybody. Did I? Oh, Brady, Celine. Like, I'm pretty sure. Oh, and Scarlett. Only people who were there will know who Scarlett was, but yeah, she was a top lady. I think the only downside now is that there aren't really any events until Sword and Shield. There won't be any other VGC events to compete in until Sword and Shield comes out, but I will still do some lives with certain teams, whether it be on Battle Spot or whether it be on Showdown, just trying out some fun teams, trying to ladder to the top of VGC. Would be kind of cool, trying that, and just showing you different teams and showing you how much I've developed as a VGC player, I suppose, would be kind of cool to do. Just kind of going from there. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it all turned out. And I mean, for now, I may potentially be coming back into Draft League, watch this space. I'm not going to go into it too seriously, but going into it with an open mind and just not looking to jump into a whole bunch of leagues, just a couple here and there. I don't want to flake out of them, just kind of going into a few casual leagues that don't put a lot of pressure on my weekly schedule. But thank you guys so much for sitting through this. I know it was probably a lot of rambling and whatnot. I was very excited to play my first VGC event. It was really enjoyable, and I'm very excited to see what happens in the next event that I'm in, whenever it happens. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here. I'm going to upload a lot more VGC content, but also maybe bring back some Draft League and some other fun stuff with people. I'm just going to try and do a bunch of cool stuff in my spare time, whenever I can. Gonna try and, like, there's so many times we go on Showdown doing like VGC games, and it would just be sick to record it because there's some games just so funny. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. This is my VGC Sydney report. I'm the Bird.